everyone to the Mixed Media Podcast. If you're watching on a video platform that streams video, I'd be saying, hey, this looks a little bit different, because it does. I am the only one here at the moment. Irving can't be here today, and Ben will be joining a little later. But yeah, for now it's just you and me, which is very strange. It's never happened before. So I think the only ones that have been solo have been with Irving, because of all the podcasting stuff. So yeah, but yeah. So actually, Ben is joining just in time. Video isn't quite there yet. Hey.
Why is the video not working? That's weird.
Yeah, it's so black, it looks like.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm having all sorts of weird computer issues right now. So the fact that I'm on at all, it says that my webcam is on, but it's clearly black, so that's not good.
Could you try restarting it, maybe, like turning it off and on again or something?
I'm gonna unplug it, and then.
All right. Well, it wouldn't be a Mixed Media Monday without some technological shenanigans.
Oh, there we go.
Going on. Hey, okay, perfect. Yeah. So yeah, you joined just in time. I was just introducing the podcast. Yeah, it's literally just started. So
okay,
yeah, welcome to the
good.
Mixed Media Podcast. Yeah, so it's a show where we talk about all things art, music, video games, and movies mostly. And yeah, so special thanks to our local supporters, 99 Crime, K Kairos, Post, and Rob Sharma. If you'd like to support us as well, you can go to mixedmediapodcast.com, where you'll find a page, our locals page, and you'll find that we have a lot of perks if you donate there. So, yep, they make it so that we can do this podcast and not lose money, which is nice. All right, I guess let's introduce ourselves. So my name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a video game developer and 3D modeler.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer.
Okay, and just a little warning. It's currently raining right now, and there is a tornado warning somewhere like in the somewhat near vicinity to me. So if my power goes out, that's what happened. If I disconnect, that's what happened.
Yeah, I'm still under a tornado warning too.
Okay, yeah.
Although I think it's kind of getting to the point where it's expiring. I think storm is mostly gone.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's tornado warning for like 5 o'clock actually. I think about it, so I guess it should be gone.
Sorry, tornado watch, not warning. If there's a warning,
yeah, this is yeah. Yeah, that's what I meant. Watch, yeah. I think the one around here was from 5 o'clock, and then so it might be gone by now. Yeah, but I know, like, before the podcast started, I looked outside and it was very windy, so I don't know. But yeah, so how was your weekend? Or weekend? Yeah, weekend. It is Monday.
Yeah, well, not bad. This weekend, I guess Friday and Saturday, I spent some time at a big kind of like jazz and swing dancing thing event in Baltimore, celebrating Chick Webb. Who's from Baltimore, and if you're from Baltimore, I thought this was just a me thing personally, but apparently it's not. A lot of people from Baltimore, they're just obsessed with saying like, "Did you know that so and so is from Baltimore?" And so, if you're into the jazz world, of course, especially if you're like a swing dancer or someone into swing music, the thing is, Chick Webb is from Baltimore. So it was an interesting event. A lot of live music and dancers from all over the East Coast. Some really amazing competitions that I watched. I'm not going to touch a dancing competition ever, but quite fascinating to watch, and some really great live music.
Gotcha. Yeah, one thing interesting about dance. I was thinking about this earlier about dance is like. Like all other arts, like video games, music, and movies, whatever, they can exist on their own. And well, I guess, they're mixed medias. So at least specifically movies and video games. So I guess technically they exist as a composition of arts. But dancing is interesting because like for dancing, typically you would consider like a music like a thing that's like associated heavily with dancing. And you can have music without dancing, but dancing without music is not like nearly as common, and it sounds a little bit strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess it's like it's a almost like it's like a mixed media where there's only one other media involved, and it's like not really the thing that composes the art itself. It's just separate, but it's like they go along, I guess.
Well, I guess you could also include like costume, clothing design as part of that too. In some kind of dancing, not necessarily everything. But yeah, dancing is kind of an art that is often dependent to some degree on music in particular. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So my week has been not so full. Easy anti-cheat broke for me, so a bunch of games that using easy anti-cheat. Was it easy anti-cheat? Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. Randomly, games that used it stopped working. So I found a solution for one of the games, and maybe we can apply it to a bunch of other games. But suddenly I'm feeling the woes of people who are like, anti-cheat sucks. I'm like, man, yeah, actually, suddenly unable to play a bunch of games kind of sucks. Yeah. But I'm lucky I didn't get like banned or anything like that, because I was one of the games explicitly banned me, or not banned me, sorry, kicked me out of a match, or kept kicking me out of matches for supposedly cheating, right?
Oh, wow.
When I wasn't doing anything. So I'm lucky. At first I didn't understand the issue, so I kept joining the game, kept getting kicked out. So I didn't get banned, which is nice. Like nothing happened like that. I suppose maybe bans are only, well, I guess it depends on the game, whether bans are done by a person reviewing it specifically or not, or whatever. But a good thing the automated thing didn't ban me, I guess. So yeah, that was my weekend. Any news?
I've been looking, and I really have not seen anything terribly interesting on the music front. So.
Okay.
Yeah, at least the music that I'm interested in.
Yeah. In terms of video games, one thing that was interesting is that Square Enix lost 15% of their value on the stock market. So it was interesting that the profit actually increased by 15% approximately. But sorry, not the profit. Their revenue increased by 15%, but their profit dropped by 65%. Which is absolutely nuts. Profits don't drop 65% randomly. Now I'm asking why. Answer is, I don't really know. I haven't really looked into it. So I'll be doing that probably right after this podcast ends, because I just found this out. So yeah, this, I wonder if this is related to my topic. I'll be talking about how video games are potentially too long nowadays. So maybe something to do that. We'll see. But yeah, that's that.
Actually, I forgot. I realized this was in the past week. If you follow us on our Discord channel, part of our Discord server, you can, which you're welcome to do. I think the link is down there, pointing in the right direction. mixedmediapodcast.com. You can find the links to everywhere you can catch us streaming, or to our locals page, and to our Discord. But on there, I had an interesting discussion about the fact that Meta released their I think they call it like a test version of AudioCraft, their generative AI music tool that is publicly accessible. I did try it. I tried it a few times and failed every time. You get to generate 12 seconds of music. I know some other members of our channel, I think 909 Crime got a result from it. But I tried a few times. You enter a text prompt. You can also attach an audio file, but you want it to be like in some way. But I have no idea what it actually ends up being like for other than like the sample that our supporter 909 Crime posted from what his prompt. I tried a couple of different things, and each time I tried it, I waited like the second time, like literally 35 minutes, and I was finally got to number 1 in the queue, and then it said error. Well, great, I just wasted. I mean, I did other things while I was waiting for it to happen, but like 35 minutes of nothing, you know. So I have no idea what the quality is, but not Facebook, Meta is really trying to come out, be the first company to have, you know, publicly available music generated by text prompts via AI. So now I guess everybody can use AI to create music. The official description is really funny. They talk. I see if I can find it. It's something about like how composers, imagine a world in which composers don't have to play every instrument to generate music. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how music is like worked for hundreds and hundreds of years. Nobody like sits down and plays every instrument, right? I mean, you could record yourself playing every instrument, and put together a track, but that's not how most people operate, right? Most people use their brains a little bit. I mean, if they're, you also have all sorts of software already that can create sounds of other instruments, right? That without you playing them. Right. It is. Imagine a professional musician being able to explore new compositions without having to play a single note on an instrument. Again, nothing special about that. Or a small business owner adding a soundtrack to their latest video ad on Instagram with ease. Well, for them, yes, that makes sense. Yeah. So that's what AudioCraft is. Meta's AudioCraft. So you can explore what AI generated 12 seconds of music sounds like.
I feel like the prompt that 99 Crime did, like, it didn't really sound like it, It just sounded like other music. Like, I don't know. At that point, might as well pick a random song out of a hat of, copyright-free music. I don't know. It wasn't like it was, incredibly grand and like impressive and like, oh wow, like I couldn't have found this elsewhere type thing.
Yeah.
Or incredibly unique or something.
Yeah, but it is, I guess, free. So I guess that's the allure of it, or something like they give you some like example prompts too, and a lot of them are really funny. It's like upbeat, happy guitar, and then like with like a guiding file of Ravel's Bolero. I'm like, what? Or like cheerful piano tune. Like, do you really
need cheerful piano tune?
Yeah, like you like
can't just find that online.
but it's not AI, right? That's the whole allure of it. You tell AI to come up with a cheerful piano tune.
Oh man, yeah, I don't know. It seems a little bit backwards. I'm not entirely sure what they're trying to do here. Maybe it's like more of like a tech demo. Like, oh, look where we're at now, and it's like, we could get better from here or something like that.
I don't know. I think it's probably just mostly trying to jump on the AI bandwagon, and well, hey, we're the first company to put this out publicly, kind of thing. That would be my guess.
Maybe, yeah, maybe it's sort of like get the buzzwords going, AI music, and maybe people will not even try it, but
yeah,
they'll have some impression of Meta, I guess, or something. I don't know, but
yeah, I don't know.
It's a shame that Meta had to rebrand to the metaverse and not like call themselves like AI or something. They were a little bit they jumped the gun with Meta stuff, and yeah, it's too late now. I can't change again. But yeah, all right. Is that all there is for news?
That's what I have.
All right, so I guess we'll get into it. I forget when we start. I feel like I should know this, but I guess I just never pay attention. When we start the first segment, does the the mixed media gaming thing show, or is that only between like the second and third, or sorry, the first and second and second and third? You know what I'm saying?
Honestly, I don't even know.
Because
mixed media gaming.
Is here.
There you go.
Welcome to Mixed Media Gaming. Yeah, If
Well,
you're just
we
tuning
know
in,
for future reference.
yeah, that we know. Yeah, welcome to Mixed Media Gaming. If you're just tuning in, welcome once again. I'll be talking about how video games are too long potentially. As you can see, Irving is not here, but he's here as a ghost and is able to do transitions and things like this. So, yeah. I guess. Do we also reintroduce ourselves in the first one? I guess we do. Okay. Well, let's reintroduce ourselves. So, my name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and video game developer.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer.
Yeah, and this is a mixed media podcast. So, I don't remember how much the intro we do, so I'm gonna keep going. Special thanks once again to our local supporters, 99 Crime, K Kairos, Post, and Rob Sharma. They support us $5 a month on locals. On whatever our locals link is, which you can find that if you go to mixedmediapodcast.com and click on our locals link. So yeah, you'll find a bunch of perks there. You can use that live whiteboard to the right, which is currently being used to quite a good degree. We have that. We corrected the time to say 7:30 now, even though we started at 8 today. Technically, think about it. But yeah. So yeah, I guess let's get into the topic. So video games are too long. What do I mean by that? So I think I first had this thought probably when I played Tomb Raider 2016. I think I always forget the year of that game. The newer Tomb Raider, not the new Tomb Raider. The new Tomb Raider in the trilogy, the first one. That's what I say. I think it's 2016, but correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody in the chat, please. But I remember I played the game, and I've mentioned that game multiple times because I suppose it's kind of influential on how I look at games. And I played it, and I was like, oh. And then I remember when it ended, I was like, oh, it's already over, huh? That was kind of a short experience, but it was really good. I really enjoyed it. Now, I don't know how many hours I had on Tomb Raider. I probably should have checked, but I forgot to before the episode started. But you can go to howlongtobeat.com, and it'll show you I assume it's like an aggregate of like the average players play time, and you can see that it says 11.5 hours for the main story, and if you want to be a completionist and do everything, it says 21 hours. Now this seems like relative to we talk about the arts on this podcast, relative to the arts, experiencing art for 11 and a half to 21 hours is a very long time to experience that art. Right? You're talking about obviously, sometimes we replay things, like a piece of music or a movie or whatever. And I say, especially for longer music pieces, it's definitely possible that you could have listened to a certain piece of music for 11 and a half hours, no doubt.
Yeah.
Within your lifetime on something. But in terms of one iteration of it, right? Talking about one playthrough of a game, the first experience, getting through just the main story 11 and a half hours, that's kind of long, right? Compared to a song, which can, of course, range from the 2 minutes song to some larger piece that's maybe like a collection of songs together or whatever, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or a movie, which a long movie would be 3 hours, let's say, right?
Or 4 hours for Gone with the Wind.
Or
yeah. I say that just because I started watching it last night, and yeah.
Oh, okay. You started watching it.
I started. Well, I was not prepared to sit through 4 hours of it, and I started too late, even if I wanted to. So I got through 45 minutes.
Do you think so? If it was 2 hours, watch the entire thing through? Do you think just one shot?
Oh, yeah, probably. Yeah.
Do you think the experience is worse because it had to be watched in multiple times, or is it kind of you find a good spot to end it and then it's just all right, it doesn't meaningfully detract from it?
Yeah, I'm sure so at least when I was watching, right, it starts with overture, it's just a picture of the southern landscape, and just says the word overture, and I don't know, it's 3 minutes long, and then it has the opening credits, and then it has almost like it's a play. It has a list of characters and who they are, and then you get to the actual start of the film, and I assume somewhere in there we have an actual intermission, or a natural pausing point. I actually I paused it because I was borrowing the film from the library and it had a lot of scratches, and it kind of just stopped at like 45 minutes. Like, well, good, because I wasn't gonna watch it too much longer anyway. It's getting kind of late, so it was kind of an artificial stopping point, technologically forced to stop there. But I'm sure there are like actual stopping points in the film.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, I would. That'd be my guess too. I don't know that much about Gone with the Wind, but I was my intuition was that there's probably some sort of natural, like, intermission in a way or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's kind of what I'm talking about, right? Is long games and stuff like that. Because actually, now I think about it, I was talking about Square Enix before, and I was saying how maybe alluding to the idea that longer games might be part of their downfall and why they're down 65% in profits. I forgot that Tomb Raider. Sorry, it's 2013 by the way, not 2013. Tomb Raider 2013 was published by Square Enix. So times have changed in terms of game length and stuff like that. But yeah, so I played Tomb Raider 2013. It ended. I was like, wow, this is kind of sad. It ended. I enjoyed it. Also, not sad like as in like it was a bad experience, but sometimes it happens when you watch a movie, for example. You're like, oh, it was so good, but it's over, and kind of like, well, it had to end. Obviously, it's like if it went on longer, it would have maybe been worse, right? Maybe it ended at the right time, and but it's just sad that the good moment, the good time has ended. But nowadays, you see games not that they weren't really long before, but nowadays, you see games in the dozens of hours, so hours, right? And then you have dozens of hours, and this is really weird for as I said before, experiencing art, because already 12 hours. It's not something you can't do it in one sitting. I spend half a day playing a game in one sitting. I hope at least that sounds like a tough time, I guess. But consider say Final Fantasy VII, which is also published by Square Enix. Technically, before the remake, it was just published by Square, not Square Enix, before they for the merger. But that game, the main story is about 37 hours, right? And the completionist run would be 82 hours. That is a lot of hours.
It is, yeah. So that's a long. I mean, that seems just to me, it's not really a video game player. Even 37 hours to complete the main story seems quite long.
Right, and now Final Fantasy is kind of known for being long, right? I'm picking a very particular example, but even outside of that, say Hogwarts Legacy as a more recent title, 26 hours main story, 66 and a half hours completionist. GTA 5 as a sort of classic example, just 31 and a half hours main story and 82 hours completionist. Right, these games very long. Just about Tomb Raider is that unlike playing something like GTA 5, is that like it felt there wasn't like it felt like the pacing was really good. I feel like, at least relatively speaking. Now, I can't say if the pacing is good, like sort of like like in an absolute sense, like it couldn't have gone much better. The reason being is that I find that generally speaking, it's just bad in story-driven video games. So it's hard for me to compare with something that's like good and be like, oh, well, it's even better than these good things, and it's close as good as it can get. And especially as someone who that's not like, I'm not a very narratively driven person, so this is not my strong suit in terms of talking points. So it's hard for me to even tell why that is. But compared to something like GTA, which feels very like it sort of drags along the way. I guess a lot of that has to do with sort of like the useless side missions that I've kind of I talked about before, where they just seem like they're there just to like almost like busy work. It's like they're there just to add length to the game. It's like you have a mission where your thing is just to drive from point A to point B, and it's like, man, that's not really that. Like, it's not like for example, like one of the first missions is you drive a tow truck, right? You drive a tow truck from point A to point B. I guess you could say there's some like story going on. You're talking to this character. I forget what her name is. Who basically doesn't show up like again. story, and is never really important, and the dialogue is not very meaningful at all. There's not very much context. It's not like there's an exposition going on or anything like that. Maybe there's some setting the tone, I guess, of the game. Maybe you could throw that mission out the window. Outside the game, it would just be a better experience overall. I'm not entirely sure what the game was trying to do there. Maybe it's supposed to give you sort of driving tutorial, maybe, of some sort. Give you a relatively slower car. Although I'm pretty sure that you've already driven around like other faster cars, I think. Well, at least in the very first mission you have. So I'm not entirely sure what the point is. Yeah, things like that just kind of make me feel like they're just adding things for the sake of adding things. But something like Tomb Raider 2013, it feels like everything was like a movie where it's like, well, I guess some movies are better than others, right? Like a good movie where it's like, everything feels intentional, and like there's no sort of like why am I here type time where it's like, well, why am I watching this? Like what's going on? Like this thing has no relevance to anything that ever is going to happen ever. It doesn't do anything for the movie or anything like that, right? So yeah, that's sort of like the impetus for me for this episode, I guess, is like that realization. And I think it's hard to put a point on when this started to happen. I'm not the best at video game history as someone who was born in 2002 and I haven't gone back to play, like 1990s games and things like this. So I know there was like an era, I can't remember, of when I played games quite a lot where open world games were like the thing. It was like everyone was making an open world game, and that was the thing. And I guess to some extent, a lot of open world games still exist, but it was like now we have to make open world games all the time, and that definitely wasn't like I don't think that's necessarily because open world games were new, because they weren't. You have like the Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Is that what it's called? Right? That's what the game's called, right? Yes, that is what it's called. It came out in like the late 1990s, I think like 1998 or something like that. It was an open world game. You have even older Grand Theft Auto, like I think was Grand Theft Auto 3 the first three-dimensional one. Came out I think roughly the same time. I think a little bit later, a couple years later. You have of course the Elder Scrolls came out early 2000s. You have Minecraft, I guess older. It's like 2010s, early 2010s, something like that. But the open world game isn't a new thing, right? It's existed for quite some time. But I feel like, at least I recall a time where it was like rapid increase in open world games, and it seems like people have somewhat gotten kind of jaded with that sort of thing. But it's not like there's like a general like large pushback, I guess is what I'd say. And not that there needs to be. It's just that it's like the open world genre has been sort of abused to facilitate games that just have longer play times. And I think that's because one, a lot of developers think that a longer play time will lead to more sales, right? And say, hey, look how much content we had. You can play it for 82 hours if you're completionist on GTA 5, and think about the value proposition, right? It's like a $60 game or something like that. It's like, wow, you're paying less than $1 per hour essentially, or whatever it is, however you say it is, right? So compare that to, want to buy an album for $12 and it's like, roughly an hour or something like that, right? It's like, wow, it's $12 per hour compared to our, 90 cents per hour or whatever it comes out to be,
Yeah, although perhaps an album is a little bit shorter, their replay value, it's a little bit easier to replay it all the way through,
Yeah, so definitely. So a music album, 100%, play through again, right? I think the reason why a lot of these games aren't very replayable on GTA 5, not that there aren't people who replay them. There are people who replay them multiple times and people who love GTA 5, but, surely you hear people replay an album like way more than GTA 5. I think one, obviously, the album is well here. I think it's because GTA 5 is a lot more of a simply a more boring experience, which might sound strange because as an action game or whatever it is, right? And I am someone who actually enjoys GTA 5, so it might sound strange to say that. But see, once you've driven the tow truck once, you don't want to do it again. Okay, once you've done a bunch of these missions, you don't want to go back and do it again. And like, oh man, this game has such great moments, but it's like great moments mixed in with like all these moments that I don't want to do again, essentially. And yeah, it's it's not good. It's not good in that way. And with the Square Enix thing, what's interesting is that drives development costs up like crazy, right? So I don't know. I know Final Fantasy 16 is in the works, I believe, or is it 15? I don't know where we're on number. I think we're on 16. And yeah, I must wonder how many hours of game is that going to have, right? It's like, how much cost is that going to add to the game? To the point where 65% reduced profits? I don't know if that's the only thing, right? But okay, think about the fact that Final Fantasy VII Remake came out, right? The first part, which is interesting because the game is so long, we need 2 parts for it. So we have Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1 came out. It went crazy, right? Lots of sales. People loved it. Great time, right? A remake of a classic game. I never played it, but I know a lot of people love that franchise and love Final Fantasy VII, right? How did they lose 65% in profit after that? That was a crazy downfall. Now, Final Fantasy VII came out a decent while ago. I don't remember when it was, but it's not like it's not like it came out this quarter for sure, right? Let me see. It came out. It was probably a couple of years ago at this point, maybe. Yeah, 2020, right? But a fall that quickly is a little bit crazy. I haven't been keeping track of their earnings reports. So I don't know if it's like been a steady thing or like a really quick suddenly 65% profit decrease or something like that. So I'm curious where that started and how they're doing around the time that Final Fantasy VII Remake came out. But I can assure you that longer games is not helping them. And it's not like you can't have a complete game that's short, because as we've seen before with Tomb Raider and stuff like that, the game can be very complete. The shortest game I played is probably one called Refunct. Refunct was, man, let me see how long this was. It was probably less than 2 hours, my guess. Very, very, very short game, but it felt complete. Like the game ended, and I was like, oh yeah, here, main story, 23 minutes, completion is 46 minutes, right? Less shorter than a movie, right? It's shorter than potentially a music album, actually. It's like, which is weird to think about that. So I don't know. My brain just went. So I measure the length of my commute in song lengths, which is kind of strange, I guess. But I'm always like, oh, I finished an album in like a quarter or something like that. And like, okay, that commute was like an average time or something like that. And obviously, album lengths vary, but it just occurred to me that this game is shorter than my commute, probably. So to work, I mean. But yeah, that Refunct is 23 minutes. I mean, like that game, like was probably fairly low budget. Like not as in like it looks low budget, but as in like literally like the things required to make it. You don't need dozens of hours of content. Yeah, it's not bad. It's like how compare. I don't know. Some it's like a simple movie. I don't know, some simple, very simple movie. Say the movie Shoplifters. Compare that to like the Avengers, right? It's like all these effects going on, like 9,000 different A-list actors and stuff like that, right? And it's like that's gonna be quite expensive, especially as a series of multiple movies that are. I think they're relatively long too. Although I don't think I haven't watched a single one in full, so I guess I don't know. That cost could go up, and I missed a bunch of chats, so let me let me look back and see what I missed. What's going on? Kikara says the hourly value thing you're mentioning, it's madness. Ben says it seems like a strange way to think about the cost to me. Imagine paying for concert tickets and the price was determined by the minutes the concert is going to be. And Kikara says one of the classic RPGs is Chrono Trigger, which is 15 hours. By RPG standards, that's practically a short story. Yeah. Oh yeah. RPGs, quite the long investment. So you don't need a long game to be complete. Case in point, Tomb Raider, Refunct, whatever it is, right? I'm sure there are a trillion other games like that will be short. A lot of them made by indie game developers, possibly because they don't really have the means to make anything long, right? Like imagine an indie game developer cranking out 26 hours of content, right? That's possible. That's happened before. And I mean specifically, I guess there's a distinction to be. like note that I'm specifically talking about narrative-driven games. So there are like games like Minecraft, for example, which like so technically there's an end to the game, right? And there wasn't always an end to the game, but now there's an end to the game. But the game is pretty, as a sandbox game, the game is kind of endless, especially with mods and stuff like that. There's just kind of like almost infinite content and infinite things you could do, right? That's like a different story than these types of games. I will talk about other types of games other than narrative-driven games, but that's what I'm focusing on for now. So in terms of like, I guess Refund, yeah. Uh-huh.
I was gonna say, Kate Cairo says, yeah, most indies they play that have an end are between 5 and 20 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I suppose I shouldn't really be saying it's not actually narrative-driven game I'm talking about. It's linear games I'm talking about. Because Refunct isn't a narrative-driven game, but it's linear. So it's some sort of game where you're on a very path. And I guess you could say, oh, GTA 5 isn't linear. I was like, I guess it has a linear path. It has a structure to it, right? A beginning and an end. And I guess you could say, well, Minecraft also, even if you exclude the Ender Dragon, there's like a early game, late game, but not necessarily. You can play however you want it, right? I suppose. I don't know. I will start saying GTA is more linear than something like Minecraft, but yeah. But yeah, so production costs, you have things like production delays, right? I'm feeling a lot of that is just caused by the sheer complexity of the games that are being created. Consider things like Cyberpunk 2077, right? Where it's like, I'm not sure how long that game is, but I'm sure it's one of these relatively long games, right? And it's like, if I look it up, Cyberpunk 2077, and we get, oh wow, it's actually a shorter game. Oh, actually depends. So main story is 24 and a half hours, relatively short for a game of its type, but completionist is 103. So relatively long in terms of that. Well, consider the fact that they had to put 103 hours into a completionist game. For people who are completionists or people who want to do side missions and stuff like that, 103 hours. It's not really a big surprise to me then how long the game took to make. And one thing things that are always strange to me is how long development developers take to create things that aren't actually played that much, right? So, for example, like I think the example I gave before is things like skins, where it's like COD has like a billion skins to make the game really bloated in terms of file size, but it's like, how many skins do you actually need in this game? Like, would you actually be selling less or less skins, like a noticeably amount less if you had less skins in the game that make the game 100 gigabytes to play? I'm a little bit skeptical, but then consider something like these completionist runs, something like that, where you have lots of content. Here's one thing that's kind of interesting is, like, if you look at if you go like GTA 5 on Steam, you can see what % of people completed like various achievements in the game. So there are achievements in GTA. One thing that's nice is that you have an achievement for beating the game, so completing the last mission of the game, and there's one for just doing the first mission of the game. So you kind of see how far people got. People who got to the first part of the game, who played it essentially, and people who got to the end. What's interesting is that only 75% of players actually completed the introduction to the game. The introduction. They didn't have to play anything. They should do the introduction, right? So that was the introduction to GTA Online, right? Which is where a lot of the GTA content goes. I don't know if the how long to beat.com thing factors in GTA Online as a separate thing. GTA Online is like, I'm almost certain it's longer than whatever was listed on this website. So only 75% of players actually interact with that, which is a lot of players, I guess you could say, right? And I guess you could say, well, GTA Online is a endless revenue stream for Rockstar. Okay, fair enough. But consider that only 25% of players get to the end of the story mode, which means that if only 25% get to the end of the story mode, how many people are actually playing your side missions, right? How many people are playing any significant amount of them? In Cyberpunk 2077, how many people are playing 100 hours of content on your game? Probably not many is my guess. Certainly like not enough. Well, little enough where I'm seriously questioning the financial value of creating such a large amount of content. And some part of me is like, well, these guys are the experts, right? And they've had a successful studio for how long, right? And like, so they probably know what they're doing and like that. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily true because let's talk about the thing we just talked about before this segment started with like meta, right, and the music things and stuff like that. That is a very strange looking play from the outsider. Right? It's like, how is this in any way something that you'd ever want to show people? And be like, wow, this is good. This is a good good product here right now. I think you can probably come up with many examples of large companies who have done things where you're like, why would we do that? The whole metaverse thing, the whole meta like rebranding, for example, very strange. For example, in the video game industry, the whole video streaming thing that had essentially failed, right? Google Stadia and stuff like that, right? Like that's all gone. It's like, I guess you could say hindsight is 2020, but I don't know. I feel like during it, many people were like, "Why this is not going to work?" This is not going to work. And I feel like at the time I was like, I think I had the same sort of thought of like, well, I don't really see how it's going to work because of latency and simply a lot of people just don't have the Wi-Fi capable of doing this kind of stuff, and the video quality is so bad and stuff like that. And I'm like, but they know what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? I was like, they probably know what they're doing. They probably just get it. They probably have the numbers that back this up, and I just don't. So like they just know more than me in that regard. And then it failed, and it's like, oh, maybe they just didn't. Maybe they were actually just dumb. I don't know. So I'm curious if this is one of the situations where it's like I have to think like, am I the crazy one, or like is it them? It's like, I don't know. It just feels very obvious to me, but it's almost too obvious, right? Where it's like, if it was this obvious, certainly they wouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. They wouldn't be doing this themselves. But I mean, look where we are now. I don't really know. It's not like people have much trust in a lot of these video game developers to do the correct thing. So very possible that they are actually just dumb. So that for sort of narrative or linear driven games and stuff like that. And it's also the fact that one reason why a lot of people might not actually be playing these games to completion is that, like, consider myself, right, someone who I have an internship that's full time, right? I commute a little less than an hour to work every day. Like, if you're telling me I have to play a game for 30-something hours, 20-something hours to get the full experience. Do you know how many sessions that is? Do you know how many weeks that is? How many months potentially that is to finish the thing? Whereas if I want to watch a movie, I can do that basically any day. I want it. I just go home, I put on a movie. It's 2 hours and it's done. That's it. It's like, it's such a, I don't know. It's simple. It's easy. It's like I don't have to be like, I don't know. I don't have to be invested in anything for that long. Could you imagine how hard it is to be invested in a story for weeks at a time? You're like in the middle of a story. You got to work for like a week. Like every time you come home, you're maybe playing the game a little bit more and more. It's like, certainly it sort of feels like a very disjointed, right? And Irving said it's the debt-driven economy, man. Maybe. Yeah, I'm curious what the I don't know what the financials of. I really haven't taken a dive into the financials of these companies. And that'd be kind of interesting because, of course, a lot of these companies are public, and so they release things like earning reports and stuff like that, which could be interesting to look at, and seeing how specific areas of their companies are doing better or worse, and how they do over time, which would be interesting. Also, where they spend their money, I gotta know, because these people burn money sometimes. I'm confused. I guess all hours of content. But yeah, so long narrative-driven games sounds like a horrible idea. Can you imagine if someone was like telling you a story and told you a story for like an hour every day, and they just walked away? They came back later, told you the next part of the
That's kind of like with the 1001 Nights, right?
What's that?
Oh, the kind of the classic story, right? Like the Sultan, there's some kind of leader of that sort who and wants to take revenge on women, so he marries a new girl from his kingdom every night and then kills her in the morning. And then Scheherazade, she decides she wants to stay alive, so she tells him a story before he goes to bed, but she doesn't give him the end, and so he has to keep her alive the next night next day so he can hear the end of the story. And she does this 1001 nights, and then he finally says, "You know what? You've been around long enough. I'm not going to kill you. I'll marry you as my real wife." And yeah.
Yeah, I suppose you can consider something like GTA, something like that. Except 75% of players choose to simply kill their wife before it ends. It's like, oh, this is a little bit long. So, and no, the game has been out for quite some time. People have had time to finish that, so there's no excuse there. But yeah, so that's for narrative-driven games, a little bit crazy. Now, aside from that, right, for non-narrative-driven games, there are games that have, for example, like Minecraft, right? Very, very. You can play that game for people have thousands of hours on it, and that's an extreme case. People have hundreds of hours. A little bit less extreme. People have dozens of hours on it. A lot less extreme. People have. Yeah, that's kind of, I guess, normal for people who play Minecraft. It's a game that's existed for since like about a decade. I was gonna say a decade and a half, but I don't think so. Yeah, about a decade at this point. Yeah, so there's a lot of time to play, and it's a game with a lot of content. And people love the game, right? Now, this doesn't have the issues I said before, where it's like, there's no story to lose track of. There's no sort of natural resolve to the game. The game resolves when you want it to resolve, right? It's a sandbox game, so that's kind of how that works. And so it doesn't really have that kind of issue. And you can say the same with things like CSGO or Valorant or League of Legends, Overwatch, because all these games that have people who play them for long amounts of time, right? But here, I would say that they're actually detrimental to the video game industry. And here's the thing: I don't know. Well, I don't know if they're doing anything wrong. I think they are. Well, okay, here, at least I'll go through it, and maybe I'll clarify my thought as I go through it. But so consider, we see stats like the number of gamers is increasing yearly or whatever, and there's a general trend in increasing gamers, and isn't this great for the industry, right? Because you'll have, obviously, more people appreciating the art, but also more developers will be able to thrive and stuff like this. But we see is like that doesn't really seem to be the case. It's not that like there are a lot more indie game studios that are successful than there were 5 years ago. That doesn't seem to be the case, statistically speaking. And it's like, well, why is this? Some people say, well, the market is saturated. I think this is just false. Not even close to true. Because the amount of people who are on Steam, I can't find a game I want to play or something like that, or something like that. It's like, it doesn't seem like to be the case when people are literally looking and they cannot find, right? And I probably have talked about what that is in a previous episode, some combination of marketing and other factors and things like that. But that's a topic for another time, or potentially something you can probably find in a previous podcast episode. But that's not it, right? So yeah, why is it that the developers don't seem to be getting that much more successful? I thought that on average, the video games industry seems to be making more money, right? It's but there are no more new developers. That's kind of because a lot of these new, if you go to a college campus or whatever or something like that, right? And you go to some random person's dorm, what are they playing? They're not playing the newest titles, probably. They're probably playing one of the games I just listed, right? Valorant, CSGO, League of Legends, the Dota players that exist apparently, but I've never seen in my entire life. Minecraft, Overwatch, things like this, where it's games that have sort of infinite, almost like an infinite content hole, which is kind of strange for things like League of Legends, where it's or Overwatch, or really most of the games I just described, other than Minecraft, they're not sandbox games. So it's you're kind of doing the same thing every time, in a way, I guess. At least the general premise is always the same. And I guess obviously the general premise of Minecraft is always the same, but the more specific general premise of those games is always the same, I guess. So that's kind of strange, I guess. And the reason why this might be bad for the video game industry is because that locks up a lot of players, right? So a lot of players who just play Valorant or whatever, right? And it's interesting where you if I ask someone hey, or if I find out someone plays video games, I'm oh, what do you play? And they're oh, I just play Valorant. And I'm you probably don't play any other game actually. You probably only play Valorant. Now this is not like I'm not trying to like knock on people who play Valorant or whatever, right? That's like fine stuff. If you play Valorant, you play Valorant. But I am saying is like these games have like an interesting thing where it seems like, and this is anecdotal, I suppose, where it's like there are a lot of people who solely play these types of games and then play nothing, and so they never get any new games, which is why you might see that you might see like the profits in the industry are increasing, the amount of gamers are increasing, but they're not going anywhere else. They're going to the same like few titles. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's kind of like if you have like I don't know, say like you have like an increase in people who are buying groceries or something like that. I don't know, right? And it's like, well, why isn't my grocery store blooming? It might be that like people are just going to ShopRite or something like that. You know, it's like people just went to ShopRite because it's like big stores or something like that. And I don't think the issue with ShopRite is as big, but we have another chat. So 99 Crime says, Dan, that's a really good point. Some games have so much content they really don't really that they I can't speak that they don't really need to explore other ones to get your fix. The thing is, I feel like people actually would enjoy playing other games. They don't try, I feel like, is the issue. And once again, it's also anecdotal. I don't have like any sort of like statistics to back it up, or like I don't know, some like industry veterans like, oh yeah, I've been here for like 3,000 years, and I've seen this over and over again or something like that. It's very anecdotal, and it's specifically from my experience at college, because it's kind of a congregation of a lot of people around my age, a lot of whom play video games. So that's kind of where I've gotten that come to that conclusion from. You go to my school has an esports center, and you go there, and it's like people are just playing the same games. I never see someone playing some unique game. Like, and I don't think I've ever went to the esports center and saw someone scream like, "Oh, I've never seen it before," or like, "Oh, that's a rare game to play." It's always the same sort of set of like very, very, very common games. And I haven't been there, I guess, that many times, but I don't know. Maybe I've been in that room 10 times, maybe, or something like that. So, and that's what I've seen. But yeah, so that it's like, okay, I don't know. Here, I guess I can understand what your guys' opinions on this. Is that a bad thing? Because like it's like on one hand, it's like, well, now okay, so I have very big problems with Valorant and CS:GO. But let's go to that and say we don't have to call it Valorant and CS:GO. You have some game that's say very artistically valuable. It's actually a good game, right? And is able to captivate people for hundreds of hours, let's say, and it traps them in that sort of game, and they don't buy another game, they just play that one game. Is that bad? Or is that just fine? Because on one hand, it's like, well, if they made a game that's that good, and it seems like they might deserve that, right? But on the other hand, it's like, it's bad for the thing that they're part of, right? As in the art form. So, yeah, what do you think about that?
I wonder, like, if a musical equivalent to that is like somebody who just listens to like one artist, or
I think that would be essentially the equivalent. Yeah. How? I guess I don't know. I have no idea. How common is that? I wonder.
Well, maybe not just like literally one. I don't know so much about like in the world of popular music, but I certainly like you'll certainly see in the classical world people who are like, I only listen to Mozart or Bach, or it's only one of those big composers, and like they're not too willing to expand their horizons beyond like a set of like a handful of composers, or even like a set of like 5 pieces. You'll certainly see a lot of that, at least online. Granted, the people I hang around with in the musical world generally, they listen to everything, and they listen to a lot of stuff. So, but I'm kind of, not the average person in that sense. But so I've never encountered that in real life. But like in the online musical world, people just talking about music, there's a lot of that in classical music world. Music like my 5 pieces, and that's what I'm going to listen to, or nobody is ever better than Mozart, and don't tell me to listen to anything else. Like, well, okay, thanks. Why did you post that then? Kind of thing.
Yeah, I see. I think it's interesting because those kind of come from different places. I feel like the reason why that would happen. like with the music sort of thing. You know, one reason, as you said, might be like, oh well, yeah, this is just the best artist or whatever, right? And you know, so I will only listen to this artist or whatever, or this set of artists. With video games, it feels like I don't know if anyone says like, I'm sure the people say this, but like for the majority of these people who play Valorant or whatever, I don't know if a lot of them are like, well, Valorant's just the best game, and that's why I only play this game. You know, a lot of times I feel like it's just what they've been exposed to, and so it's just what they play. You know, especially people like a lot of people who don't play many video games, like when they just get into it, it's like they get into it because a friend was playing a video game, and especially if your friend isn't someone who normally plays video games, it's like, oh, you don't actually play video games, you like this game, huh? And they may invite you to play the game. It's like it's whatever it is, right? Maybe it's I don't know, like Fortnite or something like that, and it's like Fortnite has a lot less of this effect. Although I'm sure that might be a generational thing. It might just not be my age group, I suppose, that plays it a lot. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. A few chats. We says Crime says I think it's a bad thing if the monopoly of attention kind of holds up the industry in a way. Also, if one company sucks up all the talent for one game, that's probably not the best thing either. But I empathize with people that get their fix from only a select few games. Gaming is supposed to be fun, and you found your fun. More power to you. And Kikaro said, it's easy to say it's horrible for discoverability for smaller creators/devs, but also what 99 just said. Yeah, I feel very conflicted about it. But I also so I suppose something that colors my opinion a lot is the fact that these games I typically think are good games. Like, well, okay, I played Valorant and CSGO, and it's not that I think they're bad games. I think they're not that good. They aren't good enough to warrant that type of attention, is what I'm saying, I suppose. Because Nathan Crime says, some people only play games to hang out with their friends, so they'll gravitate to whatever was popular and probably multiplayer. I agree with Kikaros. I actually agree. The only time I played Valorant with friends, I would never play that game alone. It's just not that fun, in my opinion. I play quite a lot alone. But I guess my tastes have changed, and I feel like I got kind of bored with it. It's kind of the same thing over and over again. So, yeah. Yeah. So, like, what happens if? Because okay, so here's the thing, right? Now, I would argue that in the case of the games I mentioned, so let's say Valorant and CS:GO, there's actually a bad. Because I phrase this. Well, okay, because they I don't even know actually. I was just say it doesn't really make much sense, huh? I don't know. Wow, I'm very conflicted right now. I don't know. Well, I suppose that there's okay, there are certain games. So I was gonna say like the way that Valorant and CS:GO keeps their players, I don't like that. But I guess like I mean the way they keep their players is like I guess I don't fully understand actually. Why do people play CS:GO for hundreds of hours when it is more or less the same thing every time? Like, yeah, obviously the situation of the exact match is different. And I suppose it's kind of like chess too, right? Like chess is always different. Like it's the same, like very, in terms of like the rule set is very simple, right? So it's always the same thing, but the person you're playing against is different, or I guess the same person. They could be, obviously playing different pieces in different, orders essentially. But I feel like in that case, maybe it's just kind of like chess in a way, right? Where it's like just like the scenario has changed, but the rules are the same, so you can kind of play it for a very long time. I don't know. Interesting. I did play CS:GO for like 170 something hours, so I suppose I didn't get very bored of it that quickly. And I have quite a few hours on Valorant, but that was with mostly the friends, as I said before. I think I have a big issue definitely with games like what's the game called? Gotcha games, or like games that essentially are gambling games, but like like not supposed to not look like casinos, I suppose, and also have more game mechanics in them. I think it's have a more of an issue with those because people grind for characters and stuff like that, and I feel like the way that they retain players is oftentimes unethical. So I suppose in that sense, then it's like okay, it's like that is like just an issue, like straight up. I suppose in the case of CS:GO, I don't really know. I just don't like them. So I guess that's my issue with. I feel like I guess it just feels very undeserving. I don't know what game would deserve that much attention, but I don't know. I feel like I feel less weird about GTA 5, and I feel like that game was also kind of deserving of the attention it gets. Although I can understand it more, but the fact that it feels like it just brings more to the table, I guess, is and GTA Online actually is just an infinite content. So I don't know, fair enough in that sort of case. But yeah, I think that's oh yeah, so okay. So I think the issue I have is that it really just limits. It sort of inflates the player count of people who are. That sounds. I want to say real gamers is not the word. That is definitely not like what is a real gamer? I don't know. It inflates the amount of people who are, I suppose, well-rounded gamers, right? So it seems like there are more well-rounded gamers, I suppose I would say, than there are, right? Which is it's not bad to play one game, I suppose, but the issue is that it probably makes the video game industry seem more healthy than it actually is, because playing one video game doesn't really help that much, if you get what I'm saying. Relatively speaking, to playing a variety of video games, I suppose. But yeah, that's what I'd say on that. I don't know if it's very controversial or not. I mean, it's very obvious. Man, it's very controversial. I can't really tell. But yeah, that's I think that's all I have for that topic though. So yeah. I guess that's all there is there. I'm waiting for 99 Crime to type. Yeah, well, well, before we end the segment. Oh, he typed. Okay, he finished. I think this might be common with a few creative industries seeming bigger than they are. I suppose, maybe. I mean, what I guess for certain things like movies and music, I have a very poor understanding of how big these industries are because they're very large, which makes it just hard to conceptualize how large it actually is, I guess. In a way. Yeah. Oh, also one thing is with longer games, they don't necessarily like the games that are repetitious and make a lot of money. One thing is they don't really reward. They don't the style of game doesn't reward much creativity, which is interesting. Because if you do something different, then that would because okay, like the games I mentioned, like League of Legends and stuff like that. Not necessarily the most not necessarily the most unique games out there in terms of what they are. They're very sort of like the least common denominator oftentimes of what they are in a way. Maybe less than League of Legends, but still somewhat in terms of a genre. And so I suppose it feels like they're also able to create the great attraction by becoming this common denominator, which is okay in some sense because it's kind of like a blockbuster in a way, right? It's like, oh, it's just fun for the whole family type thing, But in that sense, it's sort of it's not a blockbuster in the sense that it feels like it sort of devalues creativity in a way. But yeah, man, I'm really trying to figure out how much of my opinion is being colored by the fact that I don't like these games. And logic, but no, Crime says big players paying attention to others, kind of fighting for the referring to his previous thing. Yeah, I think it's a good take. I think this may be common with creative industries. Big players getting attention to others, kind of fighting for the rest. And Kikaro says, I will say for what it's worth, some genres with better reps like Metroidvanias or stage-based platformers might be more conducive to interesting mechanics, but still have their sameness. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all I have for this topic. So I'll wrap it up here unless you have anything else to say. All right. Well, thanks for watching this segment of the Makes Me a Podcast. Yeah, we'll be moving on to Arguing with Reddit, where we'll be talking about. Well, Ben will be doing that. So it'll be about music, and make sure you check out our locals page and our Discord. You want to the conversation? Go to Discord, or I was say go to discord.com. That's not gonna help you. Go to makesmeapodcast.com. You'll find a link to our Discord, and that will help you. And we can continue the conversation after the show. Yeah. So we'll move on. Hopefully, Irving is here to transition us.
Mixed Media Music.
All right. Well, welcome to Mixed Media Music, the portion of Mixed Media Podcast dedicated to all things related to music, with a particular emphasis on film and media music and on classical music. And I'm your main host for this. My name is Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer. And I have my co-host, and let him introduce himself.
My name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a video game developer and 3D modeler.
Okay, so today on Mixed Media Music, we have Arguing with Reddit, a segment we do every week dedicated to responding to hot takes, questions, discussions, things like that, found online, often from Reddit. And so I found one of these for myself, which is actually very much related to what Nathan was talking about in some ways. And if you been watching live, or are you watching later, you can go back and watch Nathan talking about whether video games, the problems with the length of video games today. And my co-host also found some things for me that I have not seen, so you get my live response to those things as well. Well, let's see. Irving gonna be around to pull one of these up.
Interesting how his camera shows black now, and I guess. Oh yeah, I don't know if we have an absent thing. I think we do have an absent marker for this. I don't know, but yeah, we'll have to wait for it. Oh, there it is.
Okay, so I can't see. Is this yours or mine or Irving's? I can't really read it.
I haven't posted one yet, so I'm looking for one.
Oh, okay, I can see. It says this is mine, so I'll read it. Okay. And like I said, this is actually related to what we were just talking about with Nathan and length of art. So ironically, I just picked this. I didn't know what Nathan's topic is going to be, so I guess coincidence here. So the question is Wagner's Ring Cycle too long? So basically, this guy says he's new to I guess he's new to our classical music on Reddit, and he decided to get tickets to watch the entire Ring Cycle over one weekend. And he says, I can't imagine what it was like sitting through it when it came out, 18 like late 1880s, I think, or early 1880s, like 1879 maybe. No air conditioning, no popcorn, no reclining seats. It says, in the metal rock punk world, we have the term called filler in relation to albums. Most albums have 2 or 3 filler songs that are just there to make the band seem more busy. These filler songs are often unneeded and add very little to the experience, so they're often skipped over. There's a lot of this going on in the Ring. I feel that Wagner could have cut out at least 5 hours of this piece and been just fine. I'm probably wrong, but this was an excruciatingly laborious piece. What are your thoughts? Okay, so somewhat related to what we were just talking about. So if you're not familiar with Wagner's Ring Cycle, it's actually a very important work of art in terms of cultural history. Wagner, a German composer, this ideal of what he called total work of art is a fancy German word for that. But basically, he wanted his operas to be the pinnacle of all the art forms, right? Pinnacle of like theater and drama, pinnacle of singing and composing, pinnacle of like costume design, that kind of stuff. essentially like a film of the late 19th century. And his big project over decades was the Ring Cycle, which is this story that's also kind of at the heart of like Lord of the Rings. And yeah, so it's ultimately it took him probably like 25 years to write it. 4 operas, and it's about 17 and a half hours of music. Now, I think originally when you went to go watch it, he has built like a special opera house just for it. I think originally it was like over several days. Like the first opera, Das Rheingold, is performed in one sitting. The other ones are each like 4 hours long, plus like multiple intermissions. So I think it's like spread out like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday kind of thing. I think that's how it was back when he originally conceived it. Yeah. So the Ring Cycle also very important culturally because the story of kind of the ultimately the main character Siegfried, he kind of inspires Freud to think about the way the world works in the way that Freud thought about the way the world works. Yes, you kind of can see you know the genesis of Freud's thoughts in it, and he was quite explicit that was one of his big inspirations. Also very important in like German cultural history. So Wagner is a very big, I guess, composer used by the Nazi regime as kind of like, this is the epitome of Germanic art. Anyway, most people probably know at least the Ride of the Valkyries. And if you don't know the name The Ride of the Valkyries, you probably heard it. It's used pretty famously at I think the beginning of why can I not think of what the name of the film is? The Vietnam film. Why can I not think of this? The one that's based on Heart of Darkness.
Apocalypse Now?
Yes, Apocalypse Now. Sorry, I don't know why I couldn't think of a title. Yes, it's featured very prominently there. The Ride of the Valkyries. So this is a good question. Is this 17-hour plus work of art too long? It's a lot of people will say that there are like a lot of orchestral highlights to it, and then it's there's way too much stuff. And honestly, that's my experience too. No, I've never seen the work performed. Actually, I've seen like the first act of the second opera, The Valkyrie, in like a seated version. But that's it. Now, I used to, when I was in high school, I loved the Ring Cycle, and it's still like a lot of fantastic music. But I think I'm trying to remember which composer famously said one of the composers who went to like the premiere of all like setting of all 4 operas. Another famous composer, I think was it like I think it. I'm trying to remember some famous composers like got great 5 minutes and then really boring hours. So yeah, basically that is my experience of it too, is listening to it. You got some like really thrilling moments, and in particular they're mostly when it's just the orchestra. And then maybe there are a couple of like the moments where he kind of goes into like more of a romantic like story. Then some of the singing is also good, but a lot of it is like on a purely musical level, it gets kind of boring. It's just a lot of people singing about a lot of like very expositional, and there's a lot of like musical complexity, like I think we talked about this years ago when we talked about like what is a theme. We talked about leitmotifs, right? Like, here's the sword theme when he says the sword, and like, oh, but it changes slightly now that something has happened to the sword, or the character feels differently about the sword. But these things are all really hidden in the music. And you have to like know what you're listening for and be paying really close attention to it. Otherwise, it's just kind of dialogue. Now, I'm sure it's really different if you are actually watching it, and we have this fusion of the arts, right? And it's not just a sonic experience, but people are acting this. We have these elaborate costumes and stage effects that were like way ahead of their time to make characters fly or whatever. I don't know exactly, but that was what he was going for. In addition to like the story itself being important. But if you're just listening to it for a purely sonic experience, yeah, there are lots of people out there who have like the Ring highlights, and it's like an hour long. So I think if you're just listening to it on a purely musical level, and you don't care about like the way that these leitmotifs are kind of woven into the kind of expositional, just like plot heavy dialogue. If you're not interested in that, and you're just interested in like, wow, cool melody, really cool orchestration, like this sounds awesome, or this sounds really pretty. Yeah, you could probably reduce it to like an hour or two of music, but that is not the experience that like the opera was intended to be. So yes, if you just want a purely musical experience, you could probably reduce way more than just 5 hours of it. But if you want to like actually experience the work of art as a total work of art, I don't think you really should be cutting anything. Now, would I pay to go spend 17 hours over several days watching this? I don't know that I have the kind of patience to do that, because that's a lot. That's a significant investment of time and money. But yeah. If that is something you're interested in, I think you do want to just kind of see all of it.
Sorry, how long was it? I don't know if I missed that part.
The opera, it just like purely like the runtime of the music is like 17 to 17 and a half hours. Wow. That doesn't include intermissions in an opera, which are often like half an hour or more, so you can go and get wine and come back and have a conversation, and then we'll have another act, and we'll have another intermission. So yeah, in total, I mean, if you include intermissions, I have no idea how long it would be.
Wow, that's crazy.
It is, yeah. Well, when he calls it like a total work of art, it is, epic in every sense of like the word in its scope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 909 Crime says that the musicians got to be exhausted after. Do they have like substitutions? Maybe like they just swap them out. Like,
well, that's why you want to do it over several days. And luckily,
makes sense.
You don't want to be like a string player. Like if you look at the string players just play, if you're like, the flute player or the piccolo player, you're sitting there and like your page is just black and rests. Like the piccolo, like first piccolo player, or just the one piccolo player, depending on the orchestration you're using for like most of these operas, except for the very first one, which is the shortest one. It's like 2.5 hours. The other ones, a piccolo, like I think of a second opera, Die Valkyrie, the piccolo player plays like 4 measures in the essentially the overture. They play like 2 measures later in the first act. They play the Ride of the Valkyries. Then they sit around for probably another 3 or 4 hours, including intermission, and then they just pick up that piccolo and play the magic fire music that ends, the opera. And I mean, challenging if you're a piccolo player, because the magic fire music is really challenging, and it's very much like it's a piccolo and like 4 harps or 6 harps. It's just really twinkly, like, and very difficult passage. I think if you look at my I think I have a recording of me playing it on my Instagram channel, but that's not neither here nor there. But you're like in total, you're probably playing 5 minutes out of 4.5 hours of music, not including intermission. So you get, but at least you get paid to sit around for 4 hours and 25 minutes if not playing. So
Not about a gig.
yeah.
All right. This is once again something weird because I don't know because I'm hosting. Am I supposed to move on or do you? I forget. I don't know what happens normally. Is the person who's doing the Reddit takes that moves on, or is it?
I don't know. Normally, Irving just presses the appropriate button, I think, and switches. But I guess I could just pull up the next one. It won't necessarily be on the screen. Let's see. Oh, I guess Irving pulled it up.
All right, okay.
Let's see.
This is not mine. Oh, so this is Irving's now. Okay.
Okay. So let me open it so I can read it. So Irving's found from our film composer. Which career path is more viable, film composing or sync licensing? I would love to hear from people in these industries. How do these two career paths compare in terms of potential for full-time income, potential for consistent part-time income, ease of entering the field, work-life balance? Thanks in advance for your insights. Okay. Well, I would say in general, if you're just writing
What is sync licensing?
Yeah, I think what he means is essentially you're like writing a lot of library music, and not non-royalty free library music. Obviously, you're not going to make any money if you're just writing royalty free library music. Okay. Yeah. Well, ease of entering. I mean, there's no bar for entering. You just write something, and you can probably find some company that will pick it up, although they may not be paying you royalties on it. Now, in order to make a decent amount of money from this, you got to churn out a lot of tracks, and you got to have it down to a science of how you're gonna write, a 2-minute track, and just kind of send it out, and just rinse and repeat. Because what you're looking for is volume. You're unlikely to just have a track that I don't know, some gigantic thing I don't know, the NFL wants to use in their Sunday Night Football, music. You're not likely to get that. You're most likely to make income by having a lot of things out there, and they all make a tiny bit of money, and cumulatively you make some money off of it. So potential for consistent part-time income, you need to just be able to churn these things out because volume is what's important. For full-time income, you probably have to be pretty good and have scored some notable successes and have some people at these bigger libraries believe in you. And the more boutique libraries, things that these bigger corporations are looking for, not just some kid who wants music for their school project or something. So probably a little bit harder to make a full-time living doing that. A lot of people will supplement film composing with this kind of stuff. Work-life balance, I don't know. I mean, you probably you're kind of in control of your own destiny, right? You're not working for somebody. You may have some agreement with a music library that they want a certain number of tracks per quarter or something, but in general, probably a better work-life balance, but it's much harder to make a full-time income. Now, the other thing about people who are involved in library music composing, though, is that those jobs are far more threatened right now by AI. Now, look at the quality of AI, right? Right, music generating AI from a text prompt, right? We talked about that earlier. Probably not that great at the moment, but if you're some kid who just wants, cheerful piano tune, and AI can spit that out for you for free, that does have some impact on the composers who write, small little cheerful piano tunes for these libraries, right? So probably more threatened at the moment by AI, even if not literally like today. In the future, they're probably more at risk than the film composers. Not that there's no risk of film composers, but that's a little bit higher of an art. Not, I don't mean like it's a like inherently more dignified art or something, but in terms of how its complexities with how it operates within a larger system, it's harder to automate that sort of thing. Now, if you're a film composer, again, ease of entering the field, well, there's really no barrier to entry, provided you can do some basic, mock-ups on your computer. But are you going to find a lot of work that isn't just like student films? That is a little bit more difficult. It's not just going to be handed to you on a platter. So potential for consistent part-time income, it probably takes even longer as a film composer to really make even what you might consider decent part-time income from it, and far along. Well, I'm just gonna say longer than for library composers, but it's gonna take you probably a while to really be a full-time film composer, just because it's kind of either an accumulation of things, and you kind of make money that way, or you hope that you get some medium-sized break and then maybe a big break. You kind of have to put your eggs in a lot of baskets. In terms of work-life balance, I think a lot of people, especially if you're full-time composers, well, let's say you're part-time, but you need, you're kind of struggling with rent and that sort of thing, you got to be working quite a bit in order to make, ends meet. Maybe not the best work-life balance. And then even a full-time composer, it seems like, people who are really doing full-time film composing, but granted, you're going to probably have a bunch of, or at least a few assistants. It kind of varies with where you are in the cycle, right? If you're in between projects, you have nothing but time. Whereas if you are in the middle of a project, most films, feature films in particular, really demanding in terms of time and all the roles you have to fill in addition to just composing. So it can be very difficult, and you're working, very, very long hours for months at a time, or weeks with almost zero sleep, and then you're done. So that was just some of the differences I would point to. I don't know if either is more viable. If you probably want to think about getting your foot in the door and making just pennies, then library music is probably the easier way to go. Whether you're going to have to you're probably going to have to supplement your income with something else.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Oh.
All right. Ghost airing, please. Just change the thing. There we go. This one's mine.
All right.
From R Music, it's unpopular opinion. It says, I prefer music that isn't performed live / at a concert. I know a lot of people really enjoy going to concerts. For me personally, I prefer the way the music sounds generally when it isn't performed live. I think that a band performing live kind of just goes to show they're talented if they perform well and sound basically as they do in their songs they release. But I feel music in general sounds better when it's not performed live. Oh, that's a very long sentence, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on what you're looking for. If you're not performing live, right, you're in a studio and recording things, you're going to probably do a whole bunch of takes, and mash them together until it sounds really polished. Even if you're like going for something that sounds relatively unpolished, like maybe like a lo-fi kind of thing, it's actually going to be polished in many ways. And even in like not just in strictly like performance aspects, it'll also be polished, right, with mixing and mastering, so they're going to kind of make things gel together in a different way. So it's kind of inherently a different experience than listening to music live, where you don't get all those things, right? People are not perfect, and they don't have the benefit of mixing and mastering and that sort of thing. I mean, you might have some, tweaking of mics and whatever live, but it's inherently a different sort of thing. So, I see benefits to both. It's always interesting when you listen to like recordings. What you can, yeah, it's always. I guess I'll put it this way: it's interesting if you like listen to like an album version of something, and then like a recording of a live version, or even the recording, studio recording, and then you listen to it in a live performance. Things are not going to be as clean, and that may be good or bad. Like if you really just want to hear exactly what you heard on the album, the studio album, right, studio version, well, you're probably not going to get that. And if it's not, if you're looking for like literally 100% fidelity, you're probably going to be disappointed in some ways. But also, there's an opportunity for something even more spontaneous, and something different, some slight way that the music is different than the way you always heard it in a live performance, and that can also be really cool. So, again, if you prefer one to another, I really can't argue against you. But just as this person says, I think music in general sounds better when it's not performed live. I think it sounds different, not necessarily better. Maybe more polished is the way to describe it, but I wouldn't necessarily say that more polished is better. It's kind of inherently a slightly different thing. So appreciate what you want. Don't appreciate live music if you don't want to, but I think I'd recognize it as an inherently slightly different phenomenon. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, so that's all I got on that. Yeah. I don't know. So
we have some chats.
Okay.
We have some chats here. KKR says there was a version of Sufjan Stevens, "To Be Alone With You," that I've only heard as a cover. Someone did it for a CL Vacation talent show. It sounds good when, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Sufjan sings it on his album, but that live rendition was haunting on another level.
Yeah, I can like think of I'm not really thinking about classical music too, because classical music is a little bit different because there's not like one version of something generally, right? Generally, so it's a little bit different than like music, mostly popular music, where there is one original version of something, then other people do it, or if the same artist does it, but it's always in contrast to like the original version of it. And in that kind of context, one experience that I thought was really incredible. Actually, I think of two that are kind of stood out to me. First one was when I visited both long ago, but I went with my brother and my father to see the Beach Boys 50th anniversary tour, one of the concerts there, and there's just something like one of my favorite songs is "I Just Wasn't Made for These Times," song from Pet Sounds. There's something that was just really incredible about hearing Brian Wilson actually like sitting at a piano and singing that song. Now, I think at the time I had not actually heard I Just Wasn't Made for These Times. So I wasn't familiar with the album version. But in that moment, like hearing the song, which I had never heard before, like the way that Brian Wilson performed that, it was just like really touching. Now I know like the original album, version from 1966, I think, very, very well, and fantastic. But there's some way that like it is not quite the same as seeing Brian Wilson, even 40 some years later, sitting at the piano and singing it and playing along with it. And another experience, I think, is I went to see with my family. We saw Paul McCartney at Washington National Stadium a couple of years ago, and it was also like a way that, like, you're in a packed baseball stadium, right, with Paul McCartney performing it, like he does "Hey Jude," and like you get the entire stadium, singing and clapping along with him, and like it went on for probably 15 minutes just repeating the chorus, right? And like that's not an experience you can have just listening to the album. I mean, yeah, you could probably get your friends together and you can sing it along with the Beatles, but it's not quite the same as just like, there's Paul McCartney and you have fireworks going, and then you got thousands of people all singing along and clapping to the song, and it just keeps going. So everybody, just kind of keeps rolling along with it, and that's just not something that you can really experience, just with the album.
Yeah, for sure. Concerts are like, live shows are like, I mean, each is a different experience in a way.
Yeah. All right. So that's all I have. If you would like to, leave some more music-related hot takes or questions or things like that for me to respond to, you can check out our Discord server. Link should be, I don't know if it's present right now with the way we're set up, but mixedmediapodcast.com, www.mixedmediapodcast.com. Find a link to our Discord server there, and I'd be happy to respond to you in our music channel there. So I think that's all we have for tonight. All right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining us if you're watching or listening live. Thank you for watching and listening if you're watching and listening to us after we have released this. Always great to have you, just in our live chat or just being part of the community, even if you're listening. Definitely give us a like or a thumbs up or whatever the equivalent is on whatever service you are using to enjoy this podcast, and let us know. Leave us some comments, if not on our Discord, in the comment section there, what you liked or what you didn't like. With that, again, special shout out to our supporters on Locals, Rob Sharma, Post 909 Crime, and K Kairos. You can join them as well at our Locals page, also at the same link. So thanks again for joining us. I hope I'm not forgetting anything.
I think that's all.
Yeah. Well, have a good night. Thank you for joining us on this Mixed Media Monday.
Good night, guys.
Look, tell a man no trouble. I don't want beef, man. I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got too much getting online. One rule, then dead I'm on site. Wrong move, I bet they gon' ride. No need for the telephone hype, nah. No need for the snoozing. Big whip outside, I'm cruising. Big stick inside, no losing. Better watch out for the snake and Judas is. Don't ask them who this is. I bet they know what I'm moving in. I bet I show it into a dim. How you hate and then lose again? How you hating my vibes? Why you wasting my time? Getting hype on my line. Tell a man I don't want feedback, I just want relax. Brand new whip, two-tone, I need that brand new hit. You know, like lean back, brand new bits I live in. We back, man, you never gon' like us. Get them on sight now, let them on light. That way they know I'm more righteous. Look at my life, I'm living alright. I'm nice, you know I'm alright. Cause looking like Christ, no need for the hype or fight or telephone.